Announcement. We now have a Discord. Come join the community and let's discuss some big ideas. Do you think that if you were raised in like another religion, you would become that religion? Not just atheist, but like let's say you're born into a Muslim family. Do you think you'd have just as much faith in the Muslim God or the Muslim religion, Islam?
Yeah, probably. I mean, obviously it's very, I guess, heretical to say this, but I mean, in terms of psychology, I would probably have to be.
Cool. Well, normally what I do is I just ask people what it's like something they believe in, something like really strongly they have a strong belief in, and then I just like to ask questions to kind of understand what they believe and why. So I normally start by asking if you have like a specific thing that you believe in, like a strong conviction, like a claim that you could make, like. So it could be like, I believe in God, or I believe in aliens, or I believe the Democratic Party is the best party or something, or I believe that people should be vegan. It can be anything.
Oh, so what do you believe generally? I thought it was more related to faith. Oh, no, okay.
We can talk about faith, but the idea is essentially like if you have something that you have a strong belief in, and then you can tell me what that is, and then we can kind of explore it together so I can better understand it. And I'm practicing this thing called Street Epistemology, which is essentially like it's essentially the Socratic method.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So do you have anything that you find like you have a strong belief in or you feel strongly about that you'd like to discuss?
There's a lot of things, really. It's a tough question. That's the first thing I wanted to say. There's a lot of, well, first of all, I'm a Christian, so obviously I believe in God. I'm a pretty devout Christian. Yeah. Should I go on about several things I believe, or just the one?
No, you can just pick one. Anything that you would like to. So it's best if it's like a specific claim. So if it's like, you know, I believe the Christian God is the one true God, or I believe God exists, or I believe we were created, or something that's like a claim that we could kind of investigate.
Well, I believe in ecumenical Christianity, which means I believe in the one God, I believe in the one true God. There, I'll just leave it at that, so it's not too complex.
Okay, cool. So claim would be, I believe in the one true God. How confident are you that there is one true God? From zero to 100, like 100 being the most confident you can be, and 0 being like not confident at all.
Well, here's the thing. Personally, as a Christian, I'm always very terrified of this question because I'm a Christian and I believe in the God, but I'm also very interested in philosophy and psychology, and I've heard theories about how any Christian is never a true Christian because there's always this subconscious belief that they don't believe in God. But I'm not really too sure about that. So I'm also mortally terrified of answering that question myself because obviously, I don't know what happens in the afterlife, but I am Christian because I believe that there is something more than everything we see. And I believe in faith because a lot of atheists, for example, like to argue, well, here's the thing: science will always happen. If we reconstructed humanity completely, we'll always come right back to science, but faith will never happen again. I disagree with Ricky Gervais. Exactly. I love Ricky Gervais. Yeah, he likes to say that a lot. But the one, I guess, discrepancy about that is that faith is almost also pretty human. So if we were to reconstruct humanity, as it were, faith would have to come to play again, because us as humans are, first of all, very free thinking, and we perceive things very differently, I guess, than most other, like apes, for example. They have intelligence, but I guess their intelligence is limited. And with us, because of especially how we developed as humans and stuff like that, we have to look at things much differently than, and because of that, we attribute objects to have something more in value than they have. This Pepsi can, for example, to some, 5,000, 10,000 years ago, some caveman would be seen as a damn spiritual object. I mean, look at it. Look at the words it says, all the logos. No, I would definitely believe time and time again, no matter how many times you reconstruct humanity, not even if we come to the one true Christian God, there would always be a similar or even same belief.
Okay. So would you say that, obviously, if you're conflicted about putting an actual number to it, because like, I can see how, like, if you were to put it at, like, you know, anything besides 100%, you would feel like you're kind of doubting, which is not a nice feeling, is what I imagine.
Exactly.
Would you just say you have an extremely high confidence in the God claim?
Well, I'm terrified of God, so I'd have to say, yeah. I mean, as any Christian is, you know, they're God-fearing. So I would say 100% there has to be a God, because even if it's not the Christian perspective of God, I still think there is a God. Definitely there is a God.
Okay.
Because there is definitely something to everything that happens.
It might be easier to just look at the God claim then, because it's not so personal then. And if you're really confident in the fact that there is a God, I'd like to understand why, because that's pretty interesting to me. What got you to such high confidence that there is a God?
Well, I suppose, first of all, it's tradition. You know, a lot of cultures, a lot of people merely believe, they would say, oh, I'm just like 75% sure I believe in God, because it's just the way they're raised. You know, same thing with Hindus, same thing with Buddhists. They all just, it can be downplayed, I guess, or filtered to just tradition, just the way they're raised. But the reason why I personally feel strongly that, that these Buddhist and Hindu deities are false, and that the Christian God or the Abrahamic God is the one true God, is because it's something more than just, the universe is so complex and it's so complicated that there's got to be one figure that managed it all, and there's got to be one sort of, you know, there can't be, because the universe is too organized almost to be divided by several different deities. I guess I could say that. So yeah, that's why I believe in I come to that conclusion, I guess, that there's one true God, and obviously there's angels that help him and stuff like that. But yeah, no, that's why I believe in the one true God.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought experiment to consider, like, why we do believe what we believe and stuff. And I think you're right on, where I think that tradition plays a large role in these things. An argument from complexity is obviously a classic one. I'm not saying this is the case, and it isn't the case. I don't. No one has all the answers, obviously. But if you could, like, hypothetically pretend that someone could come up to you and explain the arguments, like the complexity of life, without the need for a God, would that shake your confidence at all in the God claim?
Not much, really.
Okay.
Because obviously there's also the explanation for the complexity, also just, it's a variety of math, not math, but just lots of scientific explanation for the complexity, because scientific is complex and world is complex. I don't know. Sorry, but yeah, no. I would definitely be shaken. And I mean, I have been shaken before, you know, the Big Bang Theory, for example. But I think personally, no matter how far science goes, God will always be higher. So even if we tried to understand the whole universe and we got to a point where we did, there would still be so much more. You know, we'd reach observing the whole universe, right? Like, let's say humanity reaches a point where it can observe and analyze the entire universe. I reckon humans would still think from then on, okay, but what's higher than this? There's got to be something higher than this, because humans are intrinsically that way, right? They're made for progress, and it's observable that humans are like that. And because of that, I guess I've lost my train of thought. Because of that, I think no scientific explanation or no scientific method or anything scientific could ever shake my belief in God, because I just believe God is definitely there, and he's definitely above all of us, and he's definitely above everything we can perceive. Because, you know, if us humans perceive it that way, and us humans are as intelligent as we are, we've got to be grasping onto something, right? I mean, because if we've done so many good things right, there's got to be this one good grasp of God being correct. I mean, God being a true thing, and, you know, the concept of God. Yeah. So, to put it simply, I would not really be shaken. Sorry.
Are you okay to chat for a little bit longer, or I just don't want to take up, if you've got like if you only had like 10 minutes or something, I can lead this question.
I could chat for like as long as possible. It's just that I got family over and stuff.
Okay.
Not family, but like my little brother or sister could walk in, so I just have to ask you. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine. And I can obviously blur their faces if you let me use this clip on YouTube at the end. But I was wondering if you could share some of your story, like how you become a Christian.
Well, first of all, to be more specific about how I'm a Christian, I'm Orthodox. So I was raised, and sorry, just out of curiosity, what nationality are you, or what like?
It's so funny. The last person who asked this was a extremely racist white supremacist, so that's why I laughed. He's the flat earther you can see on my channel. He thought the Bible was for white people, and it was wild. Anyway, I'm English, Scottish mainly. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So McDonald is a Scottish clan. So, but I've got some British in me and a bit of Italian. Yeah.
Oh, so I'm assuming your last name is McDonald?
Yeah, David McDonald.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't even read your channel.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. No. So, I don't know if you've heard of us, but I'm Assyrian.
Okay.
Have you heard of Assyrians?
I've heard of them, but I don't know much about what Assyrian culture or traditions or country is. Like,
do you want me to explain, or should I just
go for it?
So Assyrians are essentially, to dumb it down for a lot of people, let's say for the Australian audience, think of it as the indigenous people of Iraq.
Okay.
And we kind of follow a similar form of persecution as them, but I would say sometimes it's a bit more. Right now, it's very extreme.
Mm-hmm.
We're persecuted and we're slaughtered and massacred by various other Middle Eastern cultures.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's tough, but yeah. So Assyrians are a very ancient civilization. They could be answered as, or at least the brother to one of the oldest civilizations. Because do you know what the oldest civilization is? It's Sumeria. I don't know. Have you heard of Sumerians?
Yeah. But I thought that Aboriginal Australians were like the oldest culture in the world, but maybe that's not classified as a civilization.
Yeah. That's the thing I was going to say. A lot of people like to say Aboriginals are the oldest civilization or the oldest culture. Really, first of all, in my opinion, that's a very big claim to make, because thinking logically, following a logic train of thought, that would be very unlikely, because humanity started in Africa and it migrated from there. So following that logic, wouldn't the oldest culture be Africans? It would definitely not be Aboriginals.
I think there'd be reasons why. I'm not an anthropologist, so I think there'd be reasons why they would say that, like maybe the history of Africa had, cultures be wiped out and then replaced with.
So the oldest living culture, you mean?
So the oldest like culture that's like
recorded,
stayed around like without too much change. Maybe I'm just guessing, but I would say that there would be a reason for why they would say that. I mean, it could just be because I don't know, but I don't know. I'm just guessing that there has to be a reason why they're saying that, not just because they like Aboriginal Australians. So
yeah. No, but I would agree. I would agree with that statement then, if it's correct, that it's the oldest. What's the word? Preserved culture.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think they're the oldest civilization, because the definition of civilization, and not to be offensive here, is you have society and you have settlements as well. And I'm not too sure about Aboriginal tradition or things like that, but from what I've gathered and from what I've learnt in school, they were largely nomadic. They weren't really settled people. And no offense, but I mean, I think one of the main principles.
We can continue your thought about the Sumerian culture, like, because like really like civilization, nomads, like it's not really relevant. Like,
okay, sorry if I'm derailing. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Yeah. I'm just interested in, I was just wanting to, I'm not trying to like hold you up is what I'm saying.
No. You just wanted to know about Sumerians. Sorry. I derail a lot. Yeah.
No, so do I.
Yeah. So Sumerians are one of the oldest civilization, and you've got to be very important with that word, that term of civilization, is because they were the oldest people to start society, start settlements, irrigation, farming, agriculture, all those things. And they did it alongside arguably Assyrians. They did, most specifically, they did it among Akkadians, who are the precursors to Assyrians.
Mm-hmm.
So, it can also be argued then that Assyrians are one of the oldest surviving civilizations.
Mm-hmm.
So we're one of the oldest surviving civilizations, and we're also arguably one of the first Christians. So and because of our, us being the first Christianity, we adhere a lot to early Christianity. So like
Mm-hmm.
early Christianity, like the early Christians that were like Jewish and stuff like that. Because even there's evidence of Judaism, being spread to Assyria before. So we even predated Christians. We were one of the first converted Jews, or one of the first, I guess, God-fearing people.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the letters in Revelations is to a church in Syria. I could be wrong though.
What's the letter in Revelations?
It's how in Revelations it has. Let me just look it up.
Good. I have a Bible here, so I could.
Oh, cool. What translation is it?
It's New King James Version.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. So
Revelations. It has like a bunch of at the start of, so the Revelations is the last book in the Bible. And
you may also know it calls like Babylonians like whores and stuff like that.
Yeah. The Church of Ephesus, Sardis. It's Smyrna.
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 Yeah.
Okay, that's definitely not Syria. I haven't read a Revelations in a long time, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Okay. So, Philadelphia. Yeah. Cool. All right. So Samaria was some of the earliest Christians, and is that what informs your faith?
Akkadians
Orthodox?
and Sumerians. Yeah. Assyrians more because the story of Jonah the whale.
Mm-hmm.
Jonah and the whale. So I don't know if you know the full story, but basically, the city he goes to, Nineveh or Nineveh, and the Ninevites. That's an Assyrian city.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that story, since it's it's in the Bible, and a lot of the Bible is contested if it's historically accurate or not. But still, a lot of evidence does show that there was Judaism that started to come into Nineveh, which is how we pronounce it, but the anglicized pronunciation would be Nineveh. But I'll say Nineveh because, a lot of Judaism started to spread in Nineveh because of that. And so it can be argued that we're even earlier than Christianity. But yeah, to fully answer the question of us being Christians, is that we are very early Christians. So even our Christianity, it's even different. It's very similar to Greek Orthodoxy, and we are considered Orthodox. But the Church of the East, which is the church I adhere to, so I'm not even Orthodox, we're our own denomination. Like, do you know the Ethiopian church?
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar to that. So like they're very, very similar to Orthodoxy, but there's rites and stuff like that we don't agree with in Greek. And even a lot of terms that people use for us is Nestorians, even though that's largely untrue. I don't know if you've heard of Nestorius or the Nestorian church. Nestorius was this he was a theologian, but I'm not sure if I'm right. He was a theologian who basically believed that Jesus was he wasn't both man and God, but he was like parts man and parts God, and because of that, it was very heretical, and he got pretty much denied out of the early churches, except for us. We didn't take him in, but we we were fine with him pretty much, other than all the other churches, and but nowadays we don't really agree with his ideas. We also think that Jesus is man and God, but we're sometimes called the Nestorian Church because of that one thing. So that's to explain that. But our Christianity, very similar to Orthodoxy. There's just certain things that are different, and I was raised that way.
Okay,
so that's to wrap it up.
Okay, so your Christianity is how you became a Christian is how you were essentially raised, and part of your.
I was raised in the Church of the East. Yeah.
Okay, so it's like cultural tradition. Okay, do you think if you weren't, this is just an interesting question on top of my head, if you weren't raised as a Christian, do you think if you looked at the evidence for Christianity, you'd become a Christian?
Yeah, that's I've pondered that thought many times myself. It's a very difficult question. because you've always got to understand the power of tradition. You know, like there's things such as culture shock, which I'm sorry I'm derailing here, but
No.
like culture shock, for example, like Russians and Australians, we talk. Apparently, I heard from someone else on this site that like Russian body language is vastly different to Australian body language. Like they perceive a smile as almost dangerous, or not dangerous, but they'll think you're a scammer. They'll think you're being too nice if you smile.
Mm,
And that's just tradition. That's the power of tradition. That's literally
mm,
what they think. Like their whole psychology has changed because of that culture. So same thing with can be argued with a person raised atheist or raised not devout Christian, coming to read the Bible or Christian teachings or Christian theologians, and what he'd perceive it as, it's his psychology would be so different that he would struggle to fully, he would really have to be almost indoctrinated into Christianity to become a Christian. And even then, he might not even become a Christian. He might just still stay atheist, or he might stay agnostic, which is where they're unsure if God exists. So first of all, I think it depends on how distant they are from Christianity. Like if they're raised as a Buddhist, I think they would struggle a lot to become a Christian, and vice
mhm,
versa. But they've really got to be indoctrinated, or they've got to have a spiritual experience. Sometimes people become Christian because they think they have a spiritual experience. But if I was raised, it's a very tough question because it's how I was raised. I would be a
mm,
vastly different person because of how I was raised. So I couldn't answer that question. It'd be difficult.
mm,
But to put it simply, if I was raised, let's put for the sake of argument, atheist,
mhm,
is that if that's okay? Yeah. So if I was raised atheist and I started like learning about Christianity and maybe even being taught some Christian beliefs, um, I think following my train of logic, I would start to become Christian, or I would start to show at least signs of maybe becoming agnostic. Yeah.
okay. Do you think you could do the same for other religions? Like, say, if someone taught to you, I mean, obviously you'd have to know a little bit about it now to answer the question, but like, let's say if you're born in Afghanistan, you might grow up Muslim. Do you think you would believe in Allah, or if you were born in a Hindu family, you'd subscribe to Hindu Eastern thought?
Mm. Well, definitely I'd be raised. I'd believe in Allah, and definitely I'd be raised. I believe in the Hindu deities. I think
Mm,
that's the right term. I'm not quite sure,
mm.
but I think is the question you're asking, would I start to follow in the Christian God?
No, I'm more like, do you think that if you were raised in like another religion, you would become that religion, not just atheist, but like let's say you're born into a Muslim family, do you think you'd have just as much faith in the Muslim God or the Muslim religion, Islam?
Yeah, probably. I mean, obviously it's very, I guess, heretical to say this, but I mean, in terms of psychology, I would probably have to be. It's the power of really tradition. I think plays a
Mm.
very important role in the psychology of someone and the way
You,
they're raised.
you seem like
I've always
a
thought that.
you seem like a really intellectually honest person, which I appreciate. Talking to someone like that is
Thank you.
a lot of people can't answer questions like that. But I think it's good to think like that. Do you? I'm wondering if there's any way we can determine if like religion A is true or religion B is true. Is there any like mechanism that we can use to test the validity of, like, let's say I'm talking to you. Let's say a third person comes in here and they say, I was raised Buddhist and I have all these traditions and stuff. Like, is there any way for me as an outside observer to go, okay, which one is telling the truth, or which one has a more, not telling the truth, but which one is more aligned with reality?
To put it simply, I guess just to make sure, are you like atheist? Were you raised atheist, or like
Yeah, so
so I could?
I would probably say that I wasn't raised atheist. I was involved in Christianity for a long time. And you can see on my YouTube channel, I just put a video today. But I would say I'm no longer a Christian. Yeah, I was definitely involved heavily in religion, that Christianity for a while. But so I don't know. Like, everyone has different interpretations of what agnostic or atheist means. So it's easier to just me to say I'm not convinced of the evidence of God. Is where I am. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So if you're an outsider, I guess it would be first of all more who you're closer to. Like this is me thinking psychology. Do you want me to answer like in terms of psychologically or spiritually or both or?
Well, I'm just like, is there a mechanism to determine which one is more likely to be true? Which religion is more likely to be true?
In like really simple terms, I would say kill both of them and see which one goes to heaven and which one doesn't. But you can't.
Well,
can't do that, obviously.
But Buddhists don't have heaven.
Work.
Buddhists don't have.
Yeah,
heaven.
Exactly. They have nirvana. So you can't determine
or reincarnation
that.
Or
yeah.
Mm.
Oh, sorry. I don't know if I got that wrong or not. Yeah.
Well, I think eventually you can get to nirvana, but I mean there are atheistic Buddhists, and there are Buddhists who believe in a god. So.
Oh, sorry. I'm thinking of Hinduism. Sorry, you said Buddhist, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. I was
Hinduism.
thinking of
Hinduism's yes. Similar.
No. So sorry. I was thinking of Hinduism. So Buddhist. Then there's another Buddhist. I would think the best way to determine which religion is true and which one isn't is you have to be free thinking, I think. And you personally have to look into it yourself. I mean, I could try and persuade you as much as possible. That Buddhist person could try and persuade you as much as possible. We could, to be honest, what you would believe is what you would be most persuaded by, which sounds very, not corrupt, but the word is sort of like, it sounds unspiritual, putting it that way, I guess. It's a matter of persuasion, and it sounds like mind tricks, but that's literally what it is sometimes. And what you've got to do is you've got to base it on your own. Like, obviously, if you're not convinced of God, but you've still had spiritual experiences, right? Because I know of atheists who still have spiritual experiences. They just think of it as a different. They think it's just something more psychological. So, have you had spiritual experiences?
Yeah, that's actually what led me to become a Christian. Is I had a really profound few spiritual experiences. Yeah. So
so
and,
you would have to base
in our church we would speak in tongues and would lay on hands of healing and things like that.
So you're what's it called again?
Pentecostal,
yeah. Right? You're Pentecostal. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you guys are very much spiritual. Yeah. It's got to be based on your spiritual experiences, really, and other people's spiritual experiences. Like, for example, a Muslim might say, "Sometimes I'm compelled by Allah," or something like that. But I guess it's just, first of all, Allah is like the Abrahamic God, right? So, and even then, I would say spiritual experiences overall, they all come under God. It's just that these different religions, sometimes, I don't know if you've heard of them, but I like to entertain the idea of the Baha'i faith. Have you heard of them?
I've heard the name, but I don't know anything about them.
I think I'm true here. I've just looked at a Wikipedia page about it, about the faith. But they believe, I think, that a lot of Middle East or Eastern, actually, deities in general are all under one God. So like Muhammad is even under God, and what they're all trying to do, all these deities and all these good people and all these people who are considered prophets or people who are considered saints and things like that, they all come under God, under the one God. And they are all just essentially sort of different interpretation, and they're all just trying to preach in different ways the one true God. And so, I don't think I'm exactly right, but I like to entertain that idea sometimes, because, like, for example, Hindus, they're spiritual. Hindus or Buddhists. Sorry, they're very spiritual people, and maybe they're spiritual. Maybe spirituality exists in general because of God, and because of that.
I think I mentioned this in a previous episode on Omegle, is a belief talk. Is I said there's this analogy where it's like blind men touching an elephant, and they're all describing different parts of an elephant, but none of them are getting the whole picture. And that's the idea of like religion. And there's one saying there's a trunk, and there's like this, and the other one saying there's a tusk, and there's a leg, and is that kind of what you're saying the faith is? The Baha'i faith.
I think it's pronounced that way. I'm not even sure, but I guess so. I think they think that there's one God. It's just that different people are interpreting it a different way, and Muhammad, as well as Jesus, as well as other Hindu or Buddhist people or Buddhist prophets. I'm not really sure on my terminology here, but
Mm.
yeah, they all think that the Baha'i think that all these people are just preaching God in different ways. So
Interesting.
yeah, so that's
Interesting.
sometimes the idea I like to entertain when it comes to how do all these faiths, I guess, how to prove if any of these faiths are real. And it's just that, well, first of all, as humans, we can't, because religion and spirituality in general likes to entertain the idea that we as humans can't interpret or even perceive God. So because of that, it's almost impossible to even convince someone to believe in God, or even to convince someone to become religious. It has to just be their experience and their, I'm not a person who would like to think that you have to force people into the will of God, unless of course they want to be forced, or they want to become this way, then they can. But otherwise, you shouldn't force people into believing in God. They have to come to their own realization that God exists, otherwise, otherwise they won't believe in God. Because, for example, people you always see these group of people who have been like almost instilled with these Christian values, but they come out really atheist, and it's because of that. I think that's just a psychological, I guess, result of
It's like
sort of subconsciously rejecting it, because
it's like the difference
you're being
between
forced into it.
religion and spirituality, I guess, is like how some people would describe it. Like religion can be like you're forced to read the Bible, where spirituality is like you want
Exactly,
to read the
or
Bible.
faith.
Yeah.
There's a
Faith,
very
yeah.
good Christian quote a friend told me, where it's like, religion is man in church thinking, man in church thinking about fishing, and faith is man fishing thinking about God. So what it's trying to say there is basically being religious means, you adhere to the practicalities of it. Like you go to church and you do this and you do that, but maybe you're never really instilled with the ideas of God. But being faithful is someone who in their everyday lives, they're always constantly thinking about God, or they always have God in their minds. And that's someone I would say I am. Even though, some people might say, oh, that's impossible and stuff like that. Not all the time I think of God, but I think generally I'm a more faithful person than a religious person.
Yeah.
Especially considering I don't even go to church every Sunday. I should, but I don't. But because, again, that's just a form of my own beliefs sometimes. Obviously, I think Christians should go to church every Sunday. But personally, I also think Jesus never went to, Jesus didn't even go to the synagogue he was Jewish, and he didn't even go to the synagogue on that one Sunday, which is supposed to be a rest day for them. And he got sort of, not belittled, but I'm pretty sure he got told off by the Jews or something like that. And the Jews said, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be, because he's a carpenter, and I think he was working on a Sunday. I can't remember the story exactly well, but he was basically not following the Jewish belief of, taking Sunday as a day of rest.
I do remember that's story.
Yeah. He didn't take it as a day of rest. And then, he said, I think the moral of I remember the moral of the
Sabbath made for the
story.
man, or man made for Sabbath, I think he says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just know that the moral of the story was basically, or what can be taken from the story is basically, you don't have to go to church, or you don't have to follow the traditions to be a Christian, or to be a Jew, or to be a Muslim. You just have to, have that faith.
I got one last question. If you were to wake up tomorrow and no longer have belief in a God, like hypothetically, how do you think that would change your life and your actions, or like how you perceive things? If you can even think like that.
First of all, sorry, just out of curiosity, did we answer the last question, or is there a way to, is there a mechanism to understand?
Yeah, I think we didn't necessarily answer it, but I think, because it is, we can go back to that question actually if you want, because
I sort of wanted to end at that question, because I didn't want to leave the question on a
let's try and wrap that up. So do you think there is a way to there is a mechanism, because you were saying that it's mainly about faith and stuff, but what happens if someone like they're brought up a certain way and so they lean towards Eastern philosophy, or what happens if someone's brought up a certain way and they lean towards Christianity, just for whatever culture they're in? Is that really a reliable way to determine the right God?
Like an accurate way to see the right God.
Like, how do you?
Wait, so
I'm guessing I'm trying to work out, like, how do I determine what parts of the elephant are real parts and what parts or even if the elephant exists. Like, how do I determine that the elephant exists at all? Like, the people are saying they're describing an elephant, these blind people, or they're having these experiences and they're saying this is God, but it seems like all those gods are mutually exclusive to themselves, except for the Baha'i faith, like you mentioned. But like, it seems like the Christian God is doesn't line up with the Islamic God, and the Islamic God doesn't. I mean, they do in some ways, the Abrahamic or the Hindu gods, but it just seems like they all are exclusive. And I'm trying to work out, one, are they touching an actual elephant? Is there an actual elephant there? Or are they just touching something that feels like an elephant and they're making up stories to kind of explain what they're feeling? Or two, how do I know which person is touching, like describing the part of the elephant they're touching the best? So it's kind of two parts.
Yeah. So I guess the method for determining if the elephant is real is, I'll refer to my previous argument in that there's always going to be more to something than it seems, because first of all, humans are like that, and second of all, it's almost in my what I've always thought about is, and what I've always reflected is that it's so mortal, in my opinion, it's mortally terrifying to me to think the idea that what I see is just what I see, because first of all, it conflicts with my psychology, right? I mean, as a human, I feel like most of us always see more to something than it seems. That's just how I engineer. And then you can go into that's just, what if that's just how humans are, and we're all wrong about there being more to than it seems. And I'm like, no, you can't argue that, because humanity progressed so much because of that idea that there's always more than it seems. That's why science and math and all those things progress, is because we wanted to explain everything. And that's another thing spirituality has been argued as, is, it's just a way of explaining everything. Because it's like, no, because, sorry?
They call it the God of the gaps, where it's like, wherever we have a gap in our knowledge, we put God in there.
Yeah. But
so like when the Greeks were sitting there wondering where the lightning and thunder was coming from, they'd say Zeus.
Yeah, okay.
Where maybe the most, like where I'm at is, I say, I don't know where the lightning and thunder are coming from. I don't know what that is. Like, I don't have any good reason to think it's Zeus, though, is where I would... where my skepticism leads me now. So
yeah, okay. No, I would say that it's I would disagree with that notion of what if Christianity is just a way of being God of the gaps, or using the God of the gaps, I guess, form of argument. And I'd say, well, because it's not really gaps, it's more just the intricacy of everything that exists, I guess. And I'm getting a bit too pseudo everything here, but
hey man, like that's philosophy, you know what I mean? Like, philosophy is just thinking really hard, and there's a lot of pseudo in philosophy.
Yeah. So
you're trying to work out these ideas.
Yeah, and I guess it's like it's mortally, it's just like, there's got to be some spiritual or religious explanation for the fact of why I'm so genuinely terrified of understanding the fact that I'm losing my train of thought here.
Have you heard Marcus Aurelius?
The Stoic?
Yeah.
I've heard of him, and I heard of like the Stoic, what is it called? His book?
Meditations.
Meditations. I've always wanted to read it, but I've never read it.
It's so small. Like, you can get it done so quick, but it's really good.
Yeah. I generally agree with Stoic philosophy. I mean, it's good philosophy. It's very I think a lot of people should always have that Stoic philosophy. But sorry, what's the point we're trying to make here? Yeah.
I was just going to ask you what you thought, because this might help you get your thoughts together. What do you think of this quote? Live a good life. If there are gods and they are just, then they will not care about how devout you have been, but will welcome you based on your virtues that you have lived by. If there are gods but unjust, then you should not want to worship them.
Okay.
So that kind of flies in the face of Christianity a little bit, because Christianity is obviously the opposite. Like, it talks a lot about not being works. It's about faith.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to believe in God to get into heaven. And here's one thing I'd like to highlight about that. I don't know if I should believe. Like, I obviously believe in God, because, again, I'll defer to all my. But thing there's what interesting thing to point out is Jewish people, for example. I'm pretty sure. I think early Jewish people. I'm not too sure modern Jewish, but I know the Torah the commandments, the 10 commandments. There was actually the commandments were diminished to I think 7 or a couple less than the 10 commandments for people who are not Jewish. That basically stated,
I
they
didn't know
basically
that.
stated they could still get into heaven and things like this. They just didn't have to get circumcised, and they didn't have to follow kosher. It was just more about the commandments of loving your neighbors, good virtues, virtuous things. And I'm not too sure, but I think they did have to believe in God. I'll search that up. Nah, actually, it'll be too difficult. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they had to believe in God. And so, because of that, I think I would disagree with that statement. Because then again, if you don't believe in God, what's the point of being virtuous? I mean, okay, there's sort of moralistic value to it, and there's also just general value to it. I mean, because you're moralistic or because you're pious, you generally live a better life. But who's not to say, well, that could lead into hedonism, where it's like, well, if I don't at least see some form of more than, like, for example, Nietzsche was atheist, obviously, but he was very pious, and so what can be said from there is, I guess,
I don't know if he
I
actually was
feel
atheist.
was he not?
I think people mistake that he was atheist, but I don't think he really was. He just had a really big problem with Christianity as a religion. But
I
I'm
think
not
he
sure.
had
I could
a
be wrong.
problem with Western Christianity as well,
Yeah.
because he never really agreed with the hating of Jews. Because you know how Nietzsche's works was used to like justify killing Jews, like the Nazis killing
Yeah,
Jews.
his sister or
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
I think God. Yeah. So now I'm getting back. So God would have to accept you because, first of all, to sort of be virtuous or pious, you don't even have to believe in God. You do have to believe though that there's more to things than it seems. There's more to things than the physical world. There's got to be a metaphysical world, which is like a big thing in philosophy, metaphysics. It's a big thing in philosophy. And so because of that, I think uh, believing in God is a very important way of being accepted into heaven, because because good thinkers and free thinkers and good people and just people are always metaphysical. You know what I mean? Like, there are always, even if they're atheist or they'll say they're, or like you, for example, I don't know fully about you, but I would say generally you seem a pretty pious or virtuous man. And I would say, like, it's because of that you're virtuous or you're just, because you're unsure of if God exists. You still sort of understand that there's got to be more to things than it seems.
It was actually I said this in my my atheist and Christian have a coffee video, but it was actually the morality that was taught to me by my religion that had me reject it eventually, because my journey is essentially I got extremely involved in church, but then when I went to investigate my beliefs and like what I believed and why, I discovered that I didn't have good reasons to believe. And so for me, I had to be intellectually honest and say, okay, well, I don't have good reasons. And so that leads me to say, because I don't have good reasons, I can't then say, even though I had all these internal feelings and I had this faith, I could no longer say that I believed in God, because because I determined that rationalism and was the most consistently reliable way to determine what was true or not. And I knew a lot of Christians who would lie or lie to themselves or deny evidence or misrepresent data. And for me, I found that was dishonest, intellectually dishonest, and I found that it was actually the morality that was taught to me through my religion. And I guess my mum was very big on not lying, and I hate lying. So it got me to essentially go, okay, well, I'm just being honest. It's almost like I guess being gay or something. Like, it's like you can be in the closet, but you're still gay. Like you're just not pretending. You're just pretending that you're not gay. You're just pretending that you're not, you're not, like, I had a friend who came out of the closet as gay, and he's like, I'm thinking about going back in because he got a lot of pressure from the church. And I was like, mate, there's no going back in. Like, there's not like, all you're doing then is just not pursuing your urges and pretending you're not gay. But you can still be out and not pursue your urges. But like, that whole going back in doesn't, I don't know. So it was similar.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So it was similar for me. It was like, well, I've seen this stuff now, and I have to just admit that for me, I can't logically or rationally arrive at a God belief. And so I had to just admit that, okay, well, that's where I'm at. And then, so that's kind of where I was at.
Yeah, again, it's really, I guess, the power of tradition again. For me, I've always had this idea in my head that people become who they are because of how they're raised, which is generally, I think, an accepted idea. And I've always had that idea in my life ever since I was like younger as well. I always like started to notice that people were just like their parents, and sometimes not, but generally they're like their parents. And I thought because of that, well, there's got to be like the explanation for the reason why people the way they are sometimes is because how they're raised. So it's really just the power of tradition sometimes, and trying to wrap up this whole question of how to determine if someone is right or wrong about their faith it's extremely difficult, and I think it's almost impossible unless either you follow their belief, you've been raised in their belief, or you just have a spiritual experience later that leads you to that belief. It's really about being free thinking, I guess, and coming to your own conclusions. But I guess it could also be said it's just a matter of how true it is sometimes. Like, for example, faith should be morally right? And so there are a lot of morally detestable things, not detestable, but morally questionable things that are found in Hinduism, or that are found in maybe not Buddhism, but I know Hinduism, for example, the caste system. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's very morally, well, to us, as a Western culture, it's very morally questionable or even wrong, because the caste system basically dictates some people are just, they have to be slaves just because, that's their I haven't studied it too much, but I know it's like it's their idea of, well, they're slaves because they were bad in their previous life.
Yeah.
And so, the Hindus just have to accept that. And I think that plays a reason as to why certain religions become more popular as well, is because it's a matter of being morally right. And because of that, I guess a good system you could use to determine which religion is right or wrong is which religion is more morally correct. So,
well, that's actually an interesting point, because I have a lot of conversations with Christians, and usually if they're like, I was stopped by a street preacher once, and I said, "Hey, I'm not comfortable having this conversation. This makes me uncomfortable. I'd like to go." And then she just refused, and then just kept preaching at me. So I took the kid gloves off, and I just asked her, and I was like, "Can I ask you some tough questions?" She's like, "Yeah, sure." And one thing I've learned is that Christians don't understand some of the what I would consider immoral parts of the Old Testament. And so
yes, definitely.
Things like slavery, owning humans' property.
Sorry to cut you off, but for example, in the Old Testament as well, there was a lot of it. Like, it's very confusing because in the Old Testament. Sorry, I should let you finish.
Well, I was just going to say that the reason why it's confusing is because I would ask these people, "Is slavery okay?" And they say no. And I say, "Okay, well, could you open your Bible?" And I bring them to a verse, and I said, "Was slavery okay in this situation?" And then they start ducking and weaving and going all over the place. And then they come at me and say, "Where do you get your morals from?" "I get my morals from the Bible." No, you don't. You just ducked and weaved. Like, if you got your morals from the Bible, you'd say slavery, A-okay. Ownership of another human being as property, A-okay. But you don't, because you know it's wrong.
I guess it's more they get their. I would definitely agree with you. He's wrong, because you can't get your morals from the Bible. You get your morals from books from the Bible, I guess, because a lot of people, they get it wrong that the Bible is a book. The Bible is not a book. It's a book of books. It's the book of books, and because of that, Yeah, exactly. And because of that, or even more, depending on how certain
Yeah,
which
if you've got
churches
the
books.
does your
Yeah.
church accept the oh geez, why don't I have this? There's another. My mind's just gone
Let me
blank.
just like look in my Orthodox, because even I don't know the full amount of books we accept. I don't even know the Church of the East, which books it accepts in our Bible, in our version of the Bible. But my Orthodox Bible, I could defer to because, yeah, again, it's very similar. So you can just ask and I'll see. I don't even know fully,
the
to be
Bible
honest.
books. Oh man,
Is it the Book of Enoch you're thinking of?
maybe there's this.
Is it like considered apocryphal?
Apocrypha text? Yeah, apocrypha. Do you
Oh, the
guys?
apocryphal books.
Yeah, do you guys have the apocrypha books?
Well, apocryphal. What does apocryphal mean again? Isn't it like stories that are just not true or untrue, or stories that sound true but aren't?
That's like it's like saying what's the Bhagavad Gita again? It's not like stories that are untrue. No, that's just funny. So I've actually got the 1611 word for word print of the King James Bible there. It's like a collector's edition, and they have the apocrypha. Apocrypha are extra biblical text, and they were
So extra biblical is what apocryphal means.
So they're like around 200 years after the events of Jesus. They were written by
that's right.
fathers.
Yeah, and that's why they're considered apocryphal. Is because now I'm starting to remember. Yeah, what apocryphal means again. Yeah. So which apocryphal book were you asking if we had?
The apocrypha. If you have the New King James, you probably don't have it. First Ezra, Second Ezra, Tobit, Judith.
First Ezra, like EZRA.
ESDRAS.
Well, Esther.
No, ESDRAS. Esdras.
Maybe
Judith,
it could be different spelling.
Tobit, Ecclesiasticus.
Is it New or Old Testament?
I think it's separate. So usually it's like
Old, New, and then apocryphal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of. What would it like be under if it was in the? Oh, it would be under the New Testament, right?
Or the apocrypha. Yeah, I think it'd be its own section. I don't think if you're reading the New King James, it wouldn't be in there.
No. So how was it spelled again? Sorry, EZDRA.
One first ESDRAS.
ESDR. Oh, we have two Esdras and Ezra/2 Esdras.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But we don't have one Esdras, I guess.
Do you have Tobit?
Tobit, yes, we have Tobit.
Okay. Wow. So you do have the Apocrypha.
We have some of the Apocrypha, yeah. The one thing that we don't have, which I was actually shocked by, is the Book of Enoch. Have you heard of it?
Well, it's not in the list of Apocrypha, but I think the Book of Enoch, is that like another extra biblical text as well?
I think it's either extra biblical or it's even considered. It's basically Enoch. I think he was this prophet, and he had revelations of how the world would end.
Oh, okay.
But it was also written, I think, much later. I'm not too sure, to be honest.
It's always fun to read the end of the world stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I remember my old religion teacher saying Revelations was like his favorite book of the Bible.
Yeah. It's bizarre, hey. Well, I might just end the interview and just ask that last question of like.
We never got to wrap up that question. Sorry.
That's okay. Maybe we can discuss this again over Discord or something one time. You can jump on the Discord, and it's only small at the moment, but great conversations. A lot of other people are like having conversations like this too. But what would change for you if you one day wake up and you didn't believe in God anymore? Like, would your life change much?
I would say definitely. First of all, okay, so how extreme of not believing? Like, would I just not believe anymore?
You just wake up and you're like, I don't know if I believe in God anymore.
Okay. It would be first of all, I feel like it'd be almost impossible to happen, in my opinion, unless I got hit in the head and I got some sort of amnesiac reaction, but where I literally forgot about God existing. I would, but let's say the idea that I just woke up and didn't really believe in God. I would find it very difficult just because of how my logic acts, I forgot what the word for it, but I know there's a word for the process of how people learn. Do you remember the word?
No, I don't. But I think I know what you mean. Like how you piece together, like your rationale, like how you
I guess it ended
Yeah.
with ology. I remember the word ended with ology, I think. But
Yeah.
I'm sort of a superstitious person sometimes,
Mhm.
right? And I don't know if that's just the way I was raised or something. But because of that, if I woke up and I just didn't believe in God anymore, I think first of all it'd be very difficult for me to come to that conclusion,
Mhm.
because I'm a very superstitious person. So even if I don't believe in God, I definitely believe something was at play, and I would probably just revert back to either Christianity or back to religion in general, and then
Oh,
maybe
okay.
just come back to Christianity, I think. Yeah, but then again, I can't
Interesting.
speak because I've never been put in that scenario. But yeah, I guess it's part of
That's
my rationale.
that's interesting. So it's like you have this internal perspective that
Superstitious.
will always kind of shift back to Christianity at this stage. If you
Yeah,
change,
because
maybe if you change something about that internal, I don't know what to call it,
process.
process, then it might shift somewhere else. But like if you did like a bulk ton of psychedelics or something, you'd probably
Yeah,
you'd probably end up in a mental institution. To be honest, most people
yeah.
would if you did a bulk ton. But like that, I guess that's what happens. Interesting. That's interesting. Interesting conversation.